I hate the fact that they're trying to drive you to a single marketplace that is essentially policed and managed by real estate brokers.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to today's episode of the Collecting Keys Real Estate Investing Podcast. This is the show by real estate operators for real estate operators so you can continue to grow and enhance your business in this ever-changing economy. And this is your first time here. I am Mike DeHaan here with my co-hosts Dan Austin and Dylan Cook. And Dan and I are actually calling in from Utah. We have a little in-person meetup with our scale community down here in Solitude, Utah. And tell you what, Solitude is an appropriate name for this little tiny town that we are in. Because like we had trouble finding a place like to grab lunch, which I feel like is like the easiest meal for skiing. But beautiful area. You know, we opted here versus like Snowbird, Park City, mostly just because it was not like $800 a room for the worst hotel that you've ever stayed in. And it's, you know, reasonable proximity to everything else. So, we're just driving to town for dinner. We'll figure it out. But
how many people are out there from the group?
Then we have 14, 13?
11, 12, 13. Yeah, somewhere in there.
Something like that. Yeah. Well, we were supposed to have more, but then Dylan, you bailed because you're dumb.
Dylan bailed.
And
flaky pants over here.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
it was not my fault.
Then we had two more people bail kind of at the last second. So my dinner reservation numbers are all screwed up, but it's fine. So I still got a handful, 11, 12.
Well, what's real quick, give like a rundown of the agenda. Like, what are you guys going to do tonight? Like, what are you diving into at the businesses?
Yeah. So tonight we are, this will be great because people are going to listen to this and they're going to be like, we did do that. So we are focusing today on fulfillment, like in business and your like personal self, primarily because with the economy and business and stuff being kind of challenging right now, our general belief is that if you have fulfillment in what you're doing, then it's a lot easier to kind of get through the hard times and have less of like a shiny object syndrome. And so we're going to make that kind of the focus instead of trying to focus on like business growth or solving problems or solving constraints, all the other sort of stuff that people do at other masterminds. Just because like, I don't think it's specifically the best time for that, just with the way the economy is and kind of the uncertainty that's out there.
It helps avoid burnout too. Speaking from
totally helps avoid
experience.
Burnout a ton. Yeah. So we're doing that today, and then we're doing a little we're calling like 0 to 1. Kind of stole that from GoBundance. What they do, they're like 7 to 8, so they go for 7 to 8 figures. So ours is going from like newbie to full time. We're doing a little interview with Shane Schrader about that, and so it'll be kind of like a deep dive quarter by quarter with like the big aha moments he had and everything else. And then tomorrow night we call it the Thunderdome, which is basically hot seats where everyone gets up and presents stuff around their business, presents their challenges. They'll be able to talk about the outcome of the fulfillment exercise that we're doing today. And they just get it like group feedback and guidance on ways to move things forward.
I got to ask, because I went to the first KeysCon, which I know this isn't a KeysCon, but similar vibe. One of the first exercises we did was like, okay, we do like the script review and like all this kind of stuff. And then Mike just gets up there like, okay, now get in small groups and go call people. So, which I think was the good part of is like, you know, it's action by default kind of a thing. Yeah. So if I'm not there, so I don't have any of the backlash, but I would say try to get that in there this weekend too.
Yeah. If we were doing like in the evenings, it's funny with the group that's here, like everyone's relatively experienced, right? Everyone's closing deals. So I think there is, from like the first event that you went to, Dylan, there's less of like a fear aspect or like a not doing the work aspect.
Sure.
Right? Like everyone is currently doing the work, and it is mostly just like, are they doing the correct things to get them where they want to go and avoiding getting caught in like the hamster wheel or just like the grind, which is very, very easy to do as a small business owner.
Yeah. And then, I mean, not to go on a side, but we're in this business, you know, for obviously personal gain and wealth and whatnot. And, you know, don't be the person with $5,000 in your personal and 500 in your business. Like do this to actually fund your own life. So,
yeah, I mean, it's so easy to like lose track of that, right? Or to be a real estate investor, to be like paper rich, but to be cash poor. You know, that's kind of like the old landlord joke is that you can, be a millionaire with your real estate, but you can like barely pay your own bills. And that's an easy trap to fall into. And I think the benefit that we have with being in like wholesaling, flipping focused businesses is you have the ability to do both. But sometimes if you're not correctly planning your strategy or the direction that you kind of want to go with things, you can miss out on the wealth building opportunities, but also miss out on the cash generating opportunities so you can actually live like a good lifestyle.
Totally. And like, spending $2,000 on my personal account is like, damn, that's a lot of money. Spending like $2,000 in the business is literally nothing.
You don't even think about it.
And so, it's just weird, the
Yeah.
perception that you have in that.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. It'll be a fun event.
Yeah. It's been good. We got skiing today, some late season spring skiing in April. But it was good. And we actually have a pretty good group of like skiers too, like wide range of ability levels, but everyone kept up pretty well. So it was a fun morning.
I think I ruined my elbow once trying to go down a black diamond too early, and I wiped out. Took someone else out with me, but that's the story for another time.
Danny shit in the lift line today, so
I did. I ran right into a pole. It did not feel good. I was trying not to hit somebody. I was trying to avoid being that guy. It caught me. It hurt.
All right. Well, let's dive into it a little bit. We got the first thing I found, which was kind of interesting, was a Yahoo Finance article. The basis says Zillow to ban privately marketed homes, escalating an industry fight over secret listings. And the first thing, like an article dives into, is I'm just going to read this excerpt because it sums it up pretty good. Zillow rules set to take effect next month would target homes that received limited public marketing like Instagram posts or exclusive inventory status on a single broker's website without appearing on the MLS. Those properties would be banned from later being posted on its website, quote unquote, for the life of the listing. So basically, if you're you have a pocket listing and you just send it out to like your own brokerage, that would now be not allowed on Zillow, which I don't know how you're going to police that. But this also extends potentially to for sale by owner people. So your thoughts on that, and then we'll maybe dive into a little more.
I hate everything
about it.
Sub 2 people are going to be screwed, dude. Isn't that what they do? Is they just filter on Zillow by for sale by owner and call those people?
Yeah,
that's what realtors do too. That's what everybody's doing. I hate this for a lot of reasons. Well, first of all, I hate the fact that they're trying to drive you to a single marketplace that is essentially policed and managed by real estate brokers. That's really fundamentally what it is. And now you're basically driving more and more to an inefficient, I think it's going to be an inefficient marketplace because real estate brokers can still manipulate the market. I was just talking to one of our scale members on the lift today, talking about one of the brokers he hired, and the guy's using this estimate to comp properties for his listings. Like, what are you talking? Like, what? Like, that's not a thing, right? And so you got all these knuckleheads out here doing that. And now you're giving people like us less and less options. Like Zillow, the idea of Zillow was such a great premise because it's like an open marketplace where everybody can compete. But then they've just been slowly catering to the MLS and to NAR because, like, if you've ever tried to find a for sale by owner on or listed a for sale by owner on Zillow, it doesn't automatically show it.
It's like it's a filter inside of it that you have to right. It makes it a lot harder.
It's a pain in the ass, and it's not, even when you filter by that, it's not quite apparent which ones are for sale by owner. So it's really silly. I could see if you want to adjust those, but you should show any MLS listing with or for sale by owner or whatever. And if a broker's really savvy and he has pocket listings and he can negotiate for the best deal for his sellers, he should be able to do that without having to use some stupid bullshit platform that you have to pay a monthly
or for your buyers. I mean, if
to.
you're a buyer's agent, like I feel like your worth would be able to find deals that other agents can't get. Not waiting for it to get posted, then offering $50,000 over ask just so they get it.
Totally. And as a list agent, your fiduciary responsibility is to get the best offer accepted, the highest value for your seller. And on the buyer side, you should be trying to get them the best, lowest deal, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just, I hate this, Paul. I think it's just stupid.
Well, it's a weird thing that we have in our country just because of like how the whole process works, right? Like, we have these commission-based real estate agents who make money based off of the value of the property that they're selling. You have representation on both sides who get paid based off of the value of the property. Sure, they tried to change it with all the NAR stuff, but that's, it's still the same thing. They just have to be a little bit different how they word stuff. And like, it isn't that much work, right? Like if you go to other parts of the world, like you go different places in Europe, when you go and you do a real estate transaction, say in the UK, so I have family that has done this recently, you hire an attorney, it costs like one set of fees, $2,100, $3,000 or whatever for them to do like the transfer. And then you basically negotiate the price through them. And it's very much like a back and forth, but they are just paid to do the work. They're not paid based off of like the size of the deal or anything else, which is how it should be. Or like my sister who's from New Zealand, she just sold her house that she's owned for a while. And how it works in New Zealand is basically all houses are sold at auction. And basically like the auction will be on like a Saturday, and people that want to buy a house, they'll get like the list of all the properties they're going to go to auction. And then they can go and set up times throughout the week to go and like look at the house. Then they get pre-approved by the bank for like a certain amount of money. And then they go to the auction, they buy the house, and they can basically buy it up to whatever the bank has pre-approved them for. They don't have appraisals. They don't have like a real estate agents getting paid on the process. They don't have all these like commingling opportunities because they just like don't exist fundamentally. It's like a free market auction that happens.
What you just said right there, I think is the best part. It's a free market thing, not a centralized database. Like
exactly.
Yes.
So I would agree with over something like that over the current structure. I don't know.
Totally.
It's shitty. And then it's still masked behind all this stuff. So the general population doesn't understand like the buying and the selling. And we've overcomplicated it in the United States on some of this stuff. And we kind of still keep it behind a veil, which is the broker. Because like that information is their power, and they basically are trying to lock in their value. In reality, like your value of selling a $200,000 house does not change. The service is the same for selling a $2 million house. So then why does it scale up? Well, what it really should be is like when you go to a restaurant, you can tip somebody. Like, you know what? If you work really good, I'll give you 0%, 5%, 10%, whatever. It's like they should have
or
to
just
work
based on a fee, like Mike said, because then you're like the people who probably need the most representation are probably in that lower threshold. And like a lot of agents purposely don't go after that because you're doing the same amount of work for less compensation, right? Like,
well, and here's the bullshit about it too: is you have to choose the compensation for a salesperson before they actually complete the sale. Would you ever do that? I think I'm going to pay you 3% of that sale, like, and you've never done any work for me yet. Like that's bullshit.
Yeah, you have to be locked in ahead of time before you even know if they're good or not, right? Like,
exactly.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of industries though that are like that, right? Where basically they have set up enough red tape and legislation where, it's hard for it to be dismantled. Like you have to pay for like the licenses and then just kind of the market standard to do things that way. But like, is there actual value beyond like, should it be that complicated? No. I mean, there's like silly things like that. Like if you want to go and you be a licensed barber, right? Like technically if you want to do that, there's like a whole schooling process you have to go to. And it's quite expensive if you want to learn to like cut men's hair appropriately.
Yeah.
And it's like, but like, why is it like that? It shouldn't be.
But the big companies are the ones that actually favor this. They go like Zillow's for this, and so is Redfin and all these, because that's their moat, right? If you actually go back to it, they're going to lose market share. So I don't know. The whole incentive is kind of screwed up. Do you guys have dual agency where you are?
Yeah.
Like you can represent buyer and seller?
Yeah, you have to have a dual agency document.
Yeah, I mean, we have the same thing here, but I know some jurisdictions don't even allow that at all, right? Which I can understand. Like, how are you going to actually be a fiduciary responsibility for both?
Totally, agreed.
Well, we just call it being a wholesaler, typically.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, true, right? I mean, so I don't know if that's going to affect anything other than, like you said, maybe Pace's group will flip out a little bit, but
hopefully they all disappear.
I saw someone post the other day they did like 1-2 sub-2 deal, and then they posted like, I need a transaction coordinator, I need a project manager. I'm like, okay, sit down, lady. You've done like one deal.
Slow down, dude. Slow down, buddy.
So, okay, diving into the second thing, which is actually off the press today, titled is FHA ends the Biden era COVID-19 loss mitigation waterfall. So long story short is, I guess this COVID-19 relief never stopped, right? And I guess even the people who have the FHAs through there who've gotten a little bit of hard trouble, there's tacking on, at the end of the loan. And the Trump administration is basically saying, hey, we're going to put a stop to this. Like, this is coming to an end. So they're just going to be more stringent, I guess, on how this is processed going forward. I don't know if it's going to be retroactive. But in my opinion, this thinking off the top of my head, probably not good for a lot of FHA buyers who bought something in the past couple of years.
Yeah, it's going to be underwater. So what exactly did that do? Is this like the thing where they were taking the payments and putting it on the end?
That is my understanding, yes.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't realize that it had tied back like that far, and the fact that it was still going, because I mean, COVID was like over 5 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Like we've
COVID-19,
vastly
yeah,
moved
6
beyond,
years.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
We've moved beyond all that at this point. I mean, that is probably the correct move to do that. The problem is when you have stuff like that, if you just like rip the Band-Aid off, you kind of leave a ton of people high and dry. But I don't really know another way that you're supposed to do it.
Yeah, without bringing in some other subsidy, like, and I think the Trump administration's big thing is going to be is like, how do we not affect taxpayers? Which I don't know if that's like the right approach or not, because you got to have some sort of like you're saying, Mike, you got to like ease out of that. Like, if, I think there's going to be some more people that were the foreclosures that were not happening. I think that's going to happen. But how do you keep the people not getting screwed over that actually took advantage of this, and now they're just it's going to just like stop. And they've got such big fees that they're upside down with where the market's at. And now you have, just a bunch more foreclosures. Like, what does that soft landing look like on these?
Yeah. I mean, there's no way they can go to people who have already, experienced some of these waterfall effects and be like, hey, we're going to retroactively back now you owe us like, 20 grand to catch up. There's no way you can do that.
No. But I think it's the people that are still actively tacking shit on that because clearly they can't pay their mortgage, and it's not the greatest real estate market to try to sell a house. And most of them probably aren't selling it because they're upside down, would be my guess. When you only have 3% down payment requirements, like you don't really have any equity once you tack on a couple fees.
Especially the past 2 years too, right? Like your year that you bought it. Go ahead, Mike.
It was just such a bad system anyway. I mean, it basically was the subprime mortgages of 2008, honestly. Like, I will always remember the deal where we had to pay off some dude's like $27 credit card in order for him to have the debt to income to be able to buy our property that he was buying with an FHA loan.
Yeah.
Like it just doesn't make any sense.
They probably allowed the 45%, debt to income or whatever that threshold is. And, now there's stories coming around that there's people are allowing 50%, 55%. They're pushing these loans through anyway. Right. And so I think there's going to have to be...
What is the incentive for that? Like, actually, like it's just
driving it's all economics.
And
it's driving economics, dude.
It has to be optics too, to an extent. Don't you think, Dan? Like, if we're during like, the election time, or like, look at how good housing's doing, delinquencies are down. Like, you can say all that stuff if you're kicking the can down the road.
Yeah, this goes back to what is a president measured on, which is a really shitty thing, which is GDP and economic prosperity. And so every 4 years, if we have like we have had with like Trump, like basically the last going to be 12 years as you go forward, the president's been just trying to look like they're the best president ever and having the best economic times during like the craziest fucking economic times, right? So they're always going to kick the can on some of this stuff. They're always going to extend shit. Every president's always going to try to do some spending package that spurs the economy. And the challenge I have with the FHA is like, I don't know what the best alternative is right now, because I do think home ownership in America, that's what a lot of our economy is based on, because it drives so much for people to own their home. And even in just like the construction piece of it, and new homes being built and new homes being repaired and people being able to get into those homes, and then it locks them into like a geographic location so that they're feeding that local economy. But I don't know what the other alternative is. Is it, do you just say, because I also think putting people in houses that could be upside down and then they lose their jobs, because those are people out there usually at the lower income spectrum from a job and have less job stability. Like, do you push that to where it's like you need 5% down, 10% down, and then all of a sudden that stops? They're not able to afford a house. My problem with that, Dan, is like you put your down payment in the house, and like, sure, yes, there's a lot of second and third order effects of that. But we're a consumer-driven economy. If you have 50% of your income going towards your mortgage payment, all that's getting money is interest. You have no discretionary income for consumerism at all. Zero. The financial sector is making fucking hand over fist money, but nobody else in the economy is.
Yeah.
Right?
And we've
they're collecting all the interest payments.
Yeah, very financialized economy, and I get that. And this wasn't on the agenda, but it's a kind of a good segue. Last week, Bessent, which is Trump's Secretary of the Treasury, he said in an interview, when asked about like the decline in the stock market and like stuff going down, this is a Mag 7 issue, not a Main Street issue, which I was kind of surprised to hear him say, meaning like his like Wall Street's had 2 decades of their time to shine. And it sounds like they're hell-bent on helping out Main Street. Now, we can all get into if they're doing the right thing or not. But I have been surprised that they haven't done anything to try to like alleviate that. And I think they're trying to force the Fed's hand or the fiscal policy. I think they're okay with just sitting on the sidelines and trying to do this and forcing other branches of quote unquote the government to step in.
So are you saying when the Mag 7, you're talking like the 7 top largest companies that are driving
it's like the NVIDIA,
S&P 500?
Facebook, Amazon, the top
so
7 in market
so if they have
cap.
a bad quarter, which we've seen, like with like Tesla is one of them for a while, like they're just booming, they're going big, and they're just dragging up the NASDAQ or the S&P 500 with them. And then if they go down for whatever reason, bad earnings call, the whole S&P 500 index goes down.
Yeah, so it's very top heavy, but more the dynamics of, hey, we like Trump 2016 was very much like, look at the stock market. Like, I'm great because the stock market's ripping. And now his like barometer for success almost feels like it's a 10-year, which is still trending in the wrong direction. But like, he doesn't mention the stock market at all. So it's just kind of weird to see their dynamics and what they're posturing as success, as you just previously alluded to. Maybe it's not GDP anymore. Maybe they want to see more median wages go up. Maybe they want to see the middle class actually try to thrive and get manufacturing back. I don't know.
I mean, it's all, I think at the end of the day, they still really want the stock market to look good because then they can start talking about it again. I am curious to see how the GDP, I think they will change the measurement of GDP. I think we talked about it a while ago, which was they want to pull out government labor from the GDP measurement. Because that falsely it's easy to inflate the GDP when you're really not actually producing any gross domestic product. You're just hiring more government employees, which is in itself not production.
It's the same thing as having unemployment below 4%. If you just hire the government, it's
you
kind of a bullshit metric.
Yeah. So it's like, let's get away from these bullshit metrics, which could be a good thing, and maybe let's focus on the real metrics that actually show growth and maybe uncover where we're not able to grow. I don't think manufacturing is going to be.
It's going to take time.
It's going to take time. It's going to be an 8 to 10 year plan.
We'll never have manufacturing back here because by the time that the companies are even able to start investing in that, the administration will change over and they'll just fucking take everything back.
Yeah, that is a risk.
That is, and I hope that they do like they've talked about I think everybody agrees like the pharmaceuticals and certain manufacturing should come back, try to get chips back in the US and more of that, like some of the critical AI stuff, because like that's the next frontier. So you'd hope that manufacturing, regardless of the administration, will be like, yeah, we can get on board with that policy. But like manufacturing fucking toys for my kids, like nobody wants to do that in the US.
Yeah, like sewing clothes, at mass. Or have you seen those? Have you seen like those AI videos?
Yes,
of, like
they're
manufacturing
hilarious.
Back to the US.
Yes,
and they're all like these like super fat people like trying to put like screws in like little iPhones.
With their little fat fingers.
Yeah, their little fat fingers.
I saw one on a sewing machine, like and look like a sweatshop, right? Like it's kind of messed up. But I don't know. All to say that like maybe what they've been used as success, might be changing a little bit. And Luke Groman is a macro analyst, and he made a good point the other day. Is like, because we are so financialized, because there's such a big wealth gap, a lot of the tax receipts that the government gets is from like capital gains exposure. So if you have too big of a drop off in the stock market, you are therefore reducing the revenue side of what the government can bring in, right? So that's even more of an incentive to quote prop it up, because it increases their revenue. You can attack this from one side, the revenue side or the expense side. And, the Doge community is as well-intentioned as they may be, it's going to be very hard to cut $1 trillion out of the deficit when you can't touch
let alone $2 trillion
defense or an interest expense. Yeah. So I don't know.
No. I don't know. Fundamentally, I think it's going to lead to a lot of struggle for like the average consumer and the middle class, which as real estate business owners is not ideal, because that typically is like the most of our buyers, right?
Yeah, especially if you're flipping. Yes.
Yeah, if you're flipping, even if you're owning, right? Like if you have a rental property that's worth $500,000, but you can't sell it for $500,000, is it actually worth $500,000? No. It's because you got an appraisal that says that. If you can't go on the free market and sell it for that, that's not what it's worth. Right. And, even if you're a buy and hold investor, right? Like those people are our tenants. If all of a sudden they can't afford things, and you're starting to see what I would call symptoms of like this, it's like pressure that the middle class is facing with the rise of things like the co-lending the co-lending, the co-living, right?
Oh,
And
yeah.
like the kind of like
Yep.
higher density, like living like residential area stuff that people are doing, like the tiny homes, like the increased acceptance of like manufactured homes and mobile home parks. Like looking back at it, what's pretty interesting is when like Brandon Turner started getting into mobile home parks back in like 2015, whatever that was. And they were talking about people are always going to need affordable housing. Really what that was is that was the first prediction of like, there's going to start being a lot more poor people, right? And they're going to have to move down into something they can actually afford. And that's why we've been seeing this slow increase in trend of demand for things like that. And it's going to be problematic, right? Like it's going to make it very tricky to run a real estate business because, you know, you do need a buyer to be able to monetize your deals. And if it's an investor buyer who can't, you know, flip it to a retail buyer or somebody that can't find a tenant for their property, then who's going to buy it?
You know? I firmly believe that co-living is only an asset class because the money's broken. Like that, like,
Of course it is.
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I
So
went
what
and
about
played
this, though?
disc golf with Craig Kirloff this weekend. And we talked about co-living a ton. And he's like all into it right now.
Yeah, he's like
And
building a company around it.
Come on,
he is,
Craig,
yeah.
come on.
And I know. And I'm like, dude, you have to understand that this only is going to work in certain markets. Like if you try to do that in like a market like Spokane, which there are a lot of markets like this in the United States, right? That are like under 500,000 people, you know, average incomes like $40,000 to $80,000, right? There isn't like super high paying jobs. People can get by, you know, it's a nice place to live. So people move there. If you do co-living in that kind of place, what you end up with is like single moms, right? Like bad, you know, or like divorcees living with like weird old dudes that are like kind of crackheads or like, you know, borderline homeless, you know,
Yep.
and you end up with the people that face housing instability anyways, that are getting that because that is now the most affordable option. It's not like this fun Silicon Valley vibe where you have all these tech bros that are just sharing like an 8-bedroom house, you know,
Right.
and throwing like little keggers in their living room like it's college. That's not what exists in most markets in the country.
I
think
100% agree with everything you just said.
I think
Yeah.
time has a way of fixing some of these problems because like we always are like in such we look at it in like these market cycles like in what's here and now like in front of us. I have like a feeling that some of this like affordable housing stuff will fix itself because you're going to have a massive wealth transfer from the baby boomers down to the millennials, but more so like there's going to be a shit ton of housing pop up. Like as we've grown up in our age group, like there's always been this like we're underbuilt. That's because like baby boomers were fucking house dragons, right? Like they're like,
Yeah.
I got my primary, I got my secondary, I've got this, I got that. And now they're all dying in place and they're not letting go of their first home or their second home. And so I have a belief that as Gen Z is a smaller generation, millennials have gone up in this new construction boom and we're established on our houses and we're not trying to, you know, do anything as far as like, I feel like the upgrade cycle is different than with baby boomers. And so I think in 10 years, there could actually be a shit ton more inventory. It needs to be fixed up. It's old. It's got shag carpet and that weird, ugly stone that you always see in these houses. But there'll be a shit ton of inventory, which could kind of balance out the actual high cost that we're seeing in affordability.
Yeah.
So
the demographics definitely play a piece. And the baby boomers is the largest population, then the millennials. But also the millennials aren't having near as many kids as the baby boomers did either. And so like the size and layout of the house also changes. But now we have everyone who works from home. So they need 2 home offices, right? Like, and then the whole, you know, what Instagram says you need and all that kind of stuff. But it is interesting. Yeah. Obviously, demographics are very, you know, local dependent. So just check the citydata.gov, I think is the website that this is, do you have a growing market or do you not? Like, it's pretty easy to find that data.
Yeah. And I'll slightly disagree with you on millennials being established with housing as well, Dan, just because I did a quick Google and estimated 55% of millennials own a home, right? So that's 55%, a majority. Is that what you said? 55%. Okay. Yeah. So that's a majority, but that's also still 45% that do not, right? And
how many of them want to? The argument is how many of them want to, though.
Totally. And that's a hard thing to justify. But right. I would imagine that there's a large number of people that want to.
Yeah. Well, Dan, too, like the average age of the first time homeowner is like now like 36, 37.
Yeah.
So to
I
me,
definitely
that's
think
just
the
saying,
demographics have grown.
I think to me, that's just saying they're still wanting to buy, but they're not able to do it until later in their professional life.
For sure.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree. Because baby boomers are buying their first house at 20 years old, 21 years old, right? Mm-hmm. So I agree with that. And you're right. There's an argument, Mike, that that millennials haven't been able to afford to, but we also, like, a lot of us came of age in like the worst financial crisis in history, right? So that delayed it. Yeah. And so that did stem, I think, in affordability. I do agree. I think there's an affordability issue. I'm just wondering, does it resolve itself with a demographic shift?
And yeah, I think it definitely can. And like most things, they just take longer.
Fucking 8 million more houses. I don't think we do.
No, I don't think we do.
I don't think we need to. I don't think we have a supply issue like that. I think people like to say that, but
I don't think we do. It doesn't feel like
there's always, yeah. And the funny thing is too, on that always comes up on like social media and stuff, especially when we like post houses that we like just fixed up. People will say they're making housing like unaffordable. Like, you should have seen this shithole before we bought it. That's always like honestly, that's one of the real issues, is that the standards for what a first home is so different than like even when we bought our first houses. Like the first house I ever bought in 2015, which was young for a millennial, right? I was 24. But we went and we got a traditional mortgage. I put 20% down that I basically saved up for my entire working career at that point. And when I had a decent paying job as an engineer, and it was like this janky little, like basically cardboard feeling house that was built in 2004, right? And it was like, you would walk around and it was like loud because the wood was all just like not put together well, and everything was kind of shitty. Yeah. And you were like, that's what you bought though, right? And it was tiny. It was like 1,100 square feet. But like that was what we did, and we got it and we like painted it to make it feel like home, and we did all these things. But that was the expectation. And then when we moved to Spokane, which was more affordable, we were able to buy a much nicer house, right? But the problem is like the house that I live in now is kind of what people want their first home to be like. They want it to be like this forever thing. And that's just not a realistic expectation.
No.
Yeah. And do you think that this stems from social media, like the Instagram and TikToks of the world?
Probably.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of it. Yeah. It's a comparative, right? Like even back in 2015 when like I didn't even know how buying houses worked. Like literally we got a rental increase for our little apartment we were living out in Tacoma. And I was like, that's bullshit. That's really expensive. And then I looked up, I was like, literally Google, I was like, how much is a mortgage? And it was like, this is what your average mortgage would be. And I was like, that's like $800 cheaper. Why don't we just go buy a house? And we were like, me and my wife were driving to the grocery store, and there was a sign that just said open house. And like, do we just like go there and like tell them we want to buy it? Like, I don't even know how this works. And we just showed up at this random open house in this neighborhood and met this dude, Gavin, who ended up being our agent. Just because he like,
did he dual agent?
I was like, no. No, he didn't. But like, he helped us like shop around and like find a house and like do all this sort of stuff. I knew nothing about the process because I didn't have social media to create any expectations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
so that's the crux of everything. The social media has ruined society.
I mean, my first I was renting. I was sharing a roommate with like 5 people, so my rent was like $500, like stupid cheap. But then I read like the Rich Dad Poor Dad thing. And I was like, oh, I can house hack, which I guess on the same line shouldn't even be a thing if the money wasn't broken. But I just literally, someone at my gym was an agent. I was like, and we like bought the second house that we saw, and like I didn't know anything. And I think there's just a slim line between learning the information and then taking action, which I think is like
taking action
crux of that.
Yeah. Well, I think that's honestly a big thing from, even like 10 years ago, is it was like kind of like harder to learn stuff. Like you could Google things and you had to like research, but it kind of works. It was better to just take action and then just like find someone to show you how to do it. You couldn't like buy mastermind courses or follow gurus on TikTok that were going to teach you how to do shit. You just gonna have to start doing it, and you figured it out.
They should have a guru auditor. Like the politicians have to like put in their IRS like their tax returns or whatever.
Get like an ombudsman for the gurus.
Yeah, like they should like to do the verification process to get some kind of check. You have to like submit like your revenue is actually what you say it is. Your net profit is actually what you say it is.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Yeah, it's like the Mormon church.
That's why we have like dudes on Instagram that like Ballbusters guy who just always is like calling out like Andy Elliott for like all the crooked shit he's doing, and like he will go and like do research on a lot of these guys like backgrounds in businesses, and like David Alby's had a whole bunch of stuff on Pace, but like how him and his dad embezzled all this money from their employees'
salaries. Like what don't you?
Yeah, I mean it does seem the larger the following, the more likely it is that there's some shady stuff going on.
More likely because that's all they got.
But. Anyways, we're coming up on time. Yeah. What's a good value add for people that they can use this information to continue moving their business forward?
Oh man, I'd say a lot of stuff we talk about is important, But if I can only answer this how I approach my own business, which I'm still mixing things up, but I'm still doing a lot of the same, just doing a lot of the same in a different fashion. So still doing direct mail, but trying, some different marketing, different cadences, different lists. And then people on the show have heard my struggles with PPL. I just signed up for a new provider. I'm going to start doing that. And already today, it's the first day it's already been better than the previous one. And just, I don't know, find ways to make deals happen. It's the best way I can go. I can answer that.
You got to try shit. Yeah. You got to take action. You got to do different things. You can't think that the same old method's going to keep working. Real estate's hyper local. You got to figure out by doing what's going to work in your market. You got to take action. That's really what it is. It needs to be thoughtful. It's not like you can't just freaking throw shit on the wall now and think it's all going to work. You got to take thoughtful action.
Yeah. And I think you and me were talking about today on the lift, Dan, whenever there's these kind of hiccups and downward trends, that's what creates opportunities, right? And so I think a big part of it is being willing to learn and adapt. Like you said, Dylan, keep trying things, but doing them differently, because there will be opportunities that come out of this, just like there have been in every other issue that's arisen over the past,
Of course, always will be opportunity.
And stay on top of this stuff, as things change, there's such a thing as first mover advantage, right? Yes. And so if you can do that, you're going to be positioned to make money. And this worry about your downside. Don't do something that it's going to set you back 6 months to come out of it.
Exactly. And get liquid and be prepared to move on opportunities. You look at everyone that got super rich in 2012, when they started buying all these properties, and everyone's like, man, I should have been doing that. The reason you weren't doing that is because you weren't in a position to do so. Right?
Yeah.
Now you just got to get yourself so that you are in a position to do that if the opportunity starts to come up again.
Yep. Totally. Cool, guys.
Cool. All right, guys. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. Hopefully you got some value out of that, and share this with your friends. It's the greatest way for us to continue growing the show is if you share with other people. So go ahead and send it to somebody, post it on your Instagram. Go and shoot us a follow on Instagram and share our little posts to your stories. That all helps to continue to grow the brand. So thanks for listening, everybody. We'll talk to you guys next week.
See ya.
See ya.